breaking the system. Turn to the person beside you and tell them you were ordained. Look at me now, tell them you were ordained to break the system. It started in Vietnam War era Northern California, where anti-government ideals and disdain for large centers of power ran rampant. Two young men saw the power of government and corporations as the enemy, not because they were big, but simply because they were squashing the spirit of individual creativity. They imagined a time when an individual could successfully stand up to the incumbent power, old assumptions, old systems, and challenge them. They came up with a way to change the world that did not require protesting, marching, or even direct defiance. In 1971, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniacki, working out of a dorm room at the University of California in Berkeley, they made something called the Blue Box. And their little device hacked into the phone system to give classmates the ability to avoid paying outlandish long-distance phone bills so that they could, in fact, get home without leaving the dorm. These two young, defiant upstarts soon came to found what is now known as the Apple Computer Corporation. At that time in 1971, Apple computers did not exist, but the spirit to defy a system was already embedded in them. It was their aim to topple the monopoly phone conglomerate Ma Bell because they had a chokehold on the phone system. And these two college students believed that something had to happen to change the system. It was in that spirit of challenging the system that these two young men, who were fledgling, struggling college students, started the Apple Computer Company in the face of the giant known as IBM. Apple Computers, ladies and gentlemen, in their first year earned $1 million. In their second year, they grossed $10 million. In their third year, they were able to secure $100 million. Within the first 6 years, these two college students had established a billion-dollar corporation, making their competition, IBM, now obsolete. They changed the game because they changed the way people communicated. Might I suggest to you that the enemy has many of us in a chokehold because we are now still communicating in an outdated paradigm. God is looking for us to communicate with a different language, with a different approach, and with a different kind of fervor. In 1984, Apple Computer changed the system again. They brought into the Super Bowl the very first multi-million-dollar commercial. And as a consequence, commercials during Super Bowls changed after 1984 because they had a mind to change a system. But they did not stop in 1984. They began to continuously change systems, change models, and change paradigms. While it is that the recording industry was in fact chasing down and suing 12 and 14-year-olds for pirating music illegally, these two men came together and changed the recording industry with iTunes and iPods. Isn't it interesting that neither one of them who have any musical background, neither one of them who can play an instrument, changed the way music was done? I tremble because, ladies and gentlemen, the present church is not changing music. We are co-opting the music of secular society. And secular society is no longer being influenced by the music of the church. There was a time when it is that you looked at ragtime, blues, or even R&B in its infinitesimal stages. All of its notes came from the sound of the church. But now when you come in church, you're not sure whether you're listening to 92Q or 95.5, because outside of the casual dropping of the name Jesus, you can use the same lyrics and use it in a secular construct. What happened that we are no longer changing the system, but now the church is embracing a system? Lastly, these two men who are now full-grown and multi-billionaires have changed the way the phone system operates. Because the old standard dictated that the cellular providers, not the phone manufacturers, decided what were the features and the capabilities of the actual phone. So as a consequence, T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, and even AT&T would tell Motorola and Nokia what they wanted the phone to do. Apple computers, making up in their mind that they were going to change the system, told the phone company, this is what we're going to provide. If you do not acquiesce to what it is that we're bringing, we'll go to another provider. Because we know what it is that we can do. We just want to know, can you handle it? Ladies and gentlemen, so many of you are out of date and are dysfunctional because you are working in an environment that can't handle your features. They want you to acquiesce to what it is that they can handle. And whenever you give a glimmer of innovation and intelligence, they want to squash it so that you will, in fact, become a corporate person and not an ideal person. There is a principle called the law of diffusion. And in the law of diffusion, it suggests that only 2.5% of the population has an innovation mentality. Only 2 out of 100 think outside of the box. 98% of the people will go along to get along. But there are only 2 out of 100 who think, I don't want to be a part of the system, I want to change the system. And I wonder, ladies and gentlemen, when God saved you, when God baptized you, when God covered you, do you think God did all of that just for you to become a part of a system? Or did he put something on your life so that you would challenge a system so the system would never be the same? Lo and behold, you are in the world, but you are not of the world. You are supposed to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I'm trying to figure out, if you're saved, how come there is no evidence? If you're anointed, how come no signs and wonders are following you? If you got that much favor on your life, how come the people on your job can't tell? With all that God has put in you, how come you have become a part of the system and you haven't changed the system? When we come into John chapter 6, Jesus has been teaching to a crowd all day. And when he's teaching this crowd, he's sitting in the boat and he's trying to figure out, what do I do about ministry? Because now I'm about to give the benediction and I got all of these people. The system of church, of the synagogue, of the temple suggested, let people shout, let people lift up their hands, let people hear the word and send them home. And Jesus said, that is not what I envisioned the church to be. It's got to be more than an hour and a half of an emotional massage. But if we're not feeding the people, we have become a part of a system that does not reflect who God is. Ladies and gentlemen, do you not realize that Empowerment Temple is right on the edge of something different? God did not call us to be a regular factory-produced ministry, but he is looking for a church that will challenge the system. If everybody likes what you're doing, then you ain't doing anything. But when you start doing something out of the box that folk try to second guess, is this right? Then you're on to something. Just because they never seen it before doesn't mean it's not a mantle from God.